Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Proverbs, the 18th chapter. Through desire, a man, having separated himself, seeketh and intermeddleth with all wisdom. It says, unfriendly people care only about themselves. They lash out at common sense. NIV, an unfriendly person pursues selfish ends, and against all sound judgment starts quarrels. NKJV, a man who isolates himself, seeks his own desire, he rages against all wise judgment. See, so it says, through desire, a man separating himself, seeketh and intermeddleth with all wisdom, right? That's basically against wisdom, right? He just does what he wants to do. That's why I read it in the other translations, because the Old English might mislead you a bit, based on how it's worded. Verse 2, a fool hath no delight in understanding, but that his heart may discover itself. Fools have no interest in understanding. They only want to air their own opinions. So when you find yourself going back and forth with a fool, what you realize is you can make the most sound point in all history, and they will not acknowledge it or even understand it. They're just waiting for their turn to speak. They just want to hear themselves talk. Okay, they're not interested in actually gaining understanding. That's why the scriptures tell you, when you perceive that there's no knowledge from the lips of a fool, leave, depart from him. When the wicked cometh, then cometh also contempt, and with ignominy or ignominy, reproach. Let's look into that word, ignominy. Or ignominy, shame, disgrace, right? Dishonor. So as it says, with the wicked cometh, or when the wicked cometh, then cometh also contempt, and with ignominy, reproach. Doing wrong leads to disgrace, and scandalous behavior brings contempt, and that's that shame, that ignominy. The words of a man's mouth are as deep waters, and the wellspring of wisdom as a flowing brook. Okay, and in other words, a person's words can be deep, and powerful, but as it says, the wellspring of wisdom, or it says, and the wellspring of wisdom as a flowing brook. Okay, wisdom flows. Basically, that's what it's saying, right? Wisdom is flowing. It flows like a brook, or a stream of water. So reading this in the NLT, it says, wise words are like deep waters. Wisdom flows from the wise like a bubbling brook. Because when you hear some wise words, it's like when somebody says that's deep, is because whatever it is they just heard, it makes sense on so many levels. Okay, that it's like a deep water that just goes lower and lower and lower and lower. Right? It's not shallow. It's not a shallow point. Verse 5, it is not good to accept the person of the wicked, to overthrow the righteous in judgment. When you accept the person of the wicked, it's basically like being a respecter of persons. You're in favor of the wicked in order to overthrow the righteous in judgment. And usually this happens by way of being bribed of some sort, of some degree. It says, it is not right to acquit the guilty or deny justice to the innocent, because you're not judging righteous judgment. A fool's lips enter into contention, and his mouth calleth for strokes, because he's going to say the wrong thing at the wrong time. And you say that to the wrong person, you're going to trigger, contention, strife. And it says what? Call it for strokes. Strokes are beatings. How many times have you seen somebody get their ass beat because they couldn't keep their mouth shut? That shows you that they clearly were not expressing or showing forth wisdom. A fool's mouth is his destruction, and his lips are the snare of his soul. You bring destruction upon yourself by not being able to control your mouth. Your mouth. How many times you hear that your mouth will get you in trouble, right? And his lips are the snare, a trap of his soul. So you you are your own trap, which is your inability to have self-control. The words of a talebearer are as wounds. And what is a talebearer? A talebearer is one that tells lies or slanders. Okay? Let's actually go into that word talebearer. Murmurer, whisperer, backbite, slanderer. So it's as wounds. It hurts. You know, somebody goes and spread a false rumor about you and they say the crazy ass things. And here it is, you got a rumor going on about you that is not true, but it's very damaging to your reputation. And they go down into the innermost parts of the belly, meaning like it deeply affects you. Okay? Somebody saying the wrong thing about you can really hurt you. Rumors are dainty morsels. They sink deep into one's heart. He also that is slothful in his work is brother to him that is a great waster. Why? Because they're both going to be left with nothing. Somebody that doesn't want to work is not going to have much. You're not going to amount to much. And somebody that wastes whatever you give them in an instant is also going to be left with nothing. The name of the Lord Yahweh is a strong tower. The righteous runneth into it and is safe. And how does that happen? Because they call upon the name of the Lord. That's how they run into it. They trust in the name of the Lord, and it shields the righteous like a tower or a fortress. The rich man's wealth is his strong city, and as an high wall in his own conceit. So his protection, like a fortress, is his wealth, is his money, right? That can get him out of trouble, that can shield him from hard times, right? So it says the rich think of their wealth as a strong defense. They imagine it to be a high wall of safety. Before destruction, the heart of man is haughty. See, because once somebody starts getting proud, see if I can find that precept. Depart. I don't remember if it's in the Apocrypha or in the Old Testament. It might be in the Apocrypha. Let's check the Apocrypha. Apocryphy. It says, pride is when one departeth from his maker. Yeah. Ecclesiasticus 10 and 12, the beginning of pride is when one departeth from God, and his heart is turned away from his maker. See? So that's why, and what happens when you depart from God? Destruction comes and finds you. It has a GPS. And the second you depart from God, you now on its own destination, this wicked individual. And it's coming full speed after your ass. Right? The heart, before destruction, the heart of man is haughty. That means proud. And before honor is humility. See? So you got to be humble before getting raised up. He that answereth a matter before he heareth it, it is folly and shame unto him. See? Because you you don't even know what the fullness of what's about to be said is, and you're answering prematurely. And you might say yes, when really, if you heard the whole thing, you might have been like, actually, hold up. So you wanna hear the whole thing, think about it, and then come up with a proper answer. Verse 14. The spirit of a man will sustain his infirmity, but a wounded spirit who can bear? See, you may be sick, right? You may have some injury, some infirmity, but having a strong spirit is going to help you, push through. But when your spirit is wounded and your will is weak, it doesn't matter how strong your body is, right? You've basically, that's it. Everything is down. You're down. There's nothing that's driving you to keep going. The heart of the prudent getteth knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeketh knowledge. A man's gift maketh room for him, and bringeth him before great men. And that gift, once again, going into that bribe. So it says here, giving a gift can open doors. It gives access to important people. See, now, you can look at this from two perspectives, right? Through a bribe, and getting, softening people's minds through giving them gifts can get you places and open doors for you that others can get. And that can be both in a good sense and in a bad sense, right? You can open doors that shouldn't be opened, according, like, if things were done in a righteous way, or by genuinely giving or a gift, somebody might remember you, and do something for you in return. So that's what it means, right? It opens doors for you. He that is first in his own cause seemeth just, but his neighbor cometh and searcheth him. So you may first, some situation happens, right? And the first person comes to say their case, and it sounds like they're just in their own cause because you heard their case first. But when the matter is cross-examined, right, his neighbor cometh and searcheth him, then you find out what the truth of the matter is. Because sometimes that's why it's important to hear the whole conclusion. If you hear just the first side of it and it's very emotional, you might already start to pre-formulate a judgment in your head against the other side before even hearing that side. The lot causeth contentions to cease, and parteth between the mighty. Because there's a matter you can't judge whatever's going on. You cast a lot, and trust that that's the response, right? Is set by the Lord. It ceases all contentions, all back and forths. Whatever the matter was is now decided, right? And parteth between the mighty. It says, flipping a coin, which is like a lot, can end arguments. It settles disputes between powerful opponents. Because now it's not he say or she say, it's what the Lord said. A brother offended is harder to be won than a strong city, and their contentions are like the bars of a castle. Okay, so when you offend, that's why you got to be very careful. You offend somebody and they're deeply offended. It's harder because you break trust, and it's harder to win them back. It's harder to win back an offended brother than to try and take over a strong and defend city. And when it mentions their contentions are like the bars of a castle, if you really think about it, the bars of a castle prevent you from being able to get in. It's like the gates, okay? And those contentions, or that what happens is there's now this emotional barrier, right, that is now created or put in place because of this offense, all right? And that's created through that conflict or that offense. And it makes it hard to get through, to the other person. So you want to be careful. In cases like that, the best thing is prevention. Prevention is the cure. Verse 20, a man's belly shall be satisfied with the fruit of his mouth, and with the increase of his lips shall he be filled. Let's look at that in the NLT. It says, wise words satisfy like a good meal, and right words bring satisfaction. And this is the like food for thought, right? It satisfies your mind. Like, you ever listen to a video or listen to somebody speak, and the things they're saying is just so edifying that it's like, it feels like you just ate a good meal. Verse 21, death and life are in the power of the tongue, right? The power of the tongue are your words, what you say, and that can bring death or it can bring life. It can condemn you or it can deliver you. And they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. It says the tongue can bring death or life. Those who love to talk will reap the consequences. So if you love to use the tongue, just be mindful, because you're gonna eat. You're gonna experience the outcome of it, depending on what direction you go in, right? What you say. Whoso findeth a wife findeth a good thing, and obtaineth favor of the Lord. So if you find a wife, right, a good wife that is, then that's the Lord is being favorable to you, right? And it's good to have a wife, a good wife that is a helpmeet, a companion. The poor useth entreaties, but the rich answereth roughly. Yeah, so the poor, because they don't have, they have to speak, they have to beg, they have to entreat in order to get things. But the rich, they can answer roughly. They can say what they want because they know they have money. A man that hath friends, like for example, you want to get something done, the poor man might ask you politely, and you might do it for them because of the way they asked. A rich man might just tell you to do it, but because they got money, people will do it. Verse 24, a man that hath friends must shew himself friendly, and there is a friend that sticketh closer than a brother. It says there are friends who destroy each other, but a real friend sticks closer than a brother. One who has unreliable friends, NIV, soon comes to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. NKJV, a man who has friends must himself be friendly. It says here, the text reads, may come to ruin. So we'll look into a few of those words there, but that's why sometimes, you look at some of these other translations to see, because when you look into some of these words, it means something different in like the more modern English than it did in Old English. But there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. So let's look into that word, friendly. Must shew himself friendly. To be bad, to be evil, to be displeasing, to do an injury, to be broken in pieces, to be broken asunder. Breaking, crushing. See what else they got. To be evil. To be envious, to do ill. So this is why they some of the other translations have it as a man that hath friends, or in this case many friends, instead of must show himself to be friendly, as he himself has to be friendly. It's more like, having unreliable friends, or friends that will do ill to you. And so you got to be wary of that, right? So as it says, even in the ESV, a man of many companions may come to ruin, right? Must shew himself friendly. When you go into that word, that's why it showed ill, and danger and damage. So it says a man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. And then and that's why in I'm not sure if it was this chapter, but it mentioned that a brother is born for adversity. Okay. And that brings us to the end of the book of Proverbs, the 18th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.